I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is All the Mods 9 to the Sky. So jumping back into some more All the Mods 9 to the Sky, I have a plan for the day. Now, last episode, we set up an applied energistic system, and while it is very basic, it is very functional for right now, as I would still consider myself pretty early on. But that is probably going to change today. And that's because today we are going to unlock the potential of the Netherite. And boy, do I have a lot of Netherite, and it's only going to expand from here, as I'm sitting at about 775 ancient debris at the moment, and this is without the machine even running with upgrades. Now, I do have the ability to utilize this Netherite currently, but not to its full potential. See, the ancient debris here, when processed and turned into, of course, Netherite, we can use it for a lot of different things and a lot of crafting recipes. But the things we don't have access to at the moment is anything that requires it to be smithed. For example, to make netherite mesh. And the reason why I can't smith things is because we don't have a smithing template. And the way you get a smithing template in this pack is kind of interesting. See, typically you would locate a bastion inside the nether, but here we're going to have to do and use a very specific mechanic that involves occultism. Yeah, you know the mod, the one that has the crusher demons that are absolutely insane. Now, speaking of crusher demons, we are going to have to actually generate one, because that is the only gate that is actually preventing us from making the ritual that we are going to need in order to summon a mob that drops that smithing template. So to get started with occultism, you need to break some regular grass. So you are going to have to bone meal some grass to get yourself demon dream seeds. And these things are pretty interesting. We can place them down and grow them like any other crop, and they give you fish. Well, it's not fish. It's actually a fruit. I will say it looks like an upside down pineapple, but you cannot say that that does not look like I'm holding a green fish. Anyways, textures aside, I'm going to need a few of these, so I might as well grow as many as I can for right now. We're going to use this to start some fires. And now eventually I do want to have an area dedicated for one massive ritual that is going to be a part of occultism. But for right now, what I'm going to be focusing on is just getting enough up to be able to get that smithing template. Because once we have one, we don't really have to do this anymore. Now back to starting those fires, because I think they're kind of interesting. So we just place the fruit down and then we light it and we get ourselves a spirit fire. And then all you have to do is stand in the fire, where all of your dreams will surely die. Well, that one I made up. No, but once you have this fire, you can toss things like saplings in here. And you'll notice I'm getting some occultism saplings, which are kind of nice. And we can also drop in some andesite, and then we'll end up getting other stone back. Now, we are going to need resources from this tree. So I'm going to place this down and then do a little twerk, and notice it looks just like a regular oak tree. To solve this, I need to consume some of the fruit here. And yes, things are going to get very trippy. Now, while I'm in this mode, I can go ahead and I can then harvest this tree. And I will gather some logs that are very special called otherworld logs. And this is only harvestable, by the way, while I'm under the influence of this effect. You see where I'm going with this? Yep, it's exactly what you think it is. So yeah, just munch on some random plants and just let everything grow. Now with these logs, we're going to toss them in here. And so I'm going to do about 16 of them for right now. And that is going to give us otherworld ashes. And then for the burnt other stone, well, that's just smelting the other stone. And once we have that done, we're actually getting somewhere, I promise. Now, while that's cooking up, I do recommend crafting the book. You'll almost absolutely need this book. I don't think there's any way around it unless you have these rituals memorized, which is very doubtful. And that's the Dictionary of Spirits. You can make that with just a demon dream seed that you've gotten. And what I recommend is just when you open this up, you can read all of it through. I've definitely read through most of this book, but there should be a little eye in the top right hand corner, and you can just click that and all of this will become unlocked. And I actually really enjoy that feature of this book, because I can't be the only one who kind of likes to read ahead in mods. But this does have its own starting guide. Essentially, you follow this guide like I'm going to be showing you, and we need to make white chalk, and then we need to summon and do our first ritual. After that, then we can really start to progress, because we're going to need a crusher demon in order to make the next tier chalk, which is going to be yellow and purple. Now, to make that ritual, we are going to need at least our first base chalk, which is going to be in pure white chalk. And so I'll take this, and to make it no longer impure, we are going to toss it in the fire. Now I have myself some white chalk. And this is why I said you're probably going to need this book, because our first ritual here, you'll see if we place this on the ground, we are going to have to do this by hand. So I'm going to follow this line here, and I'm just going to place this ritual just like so. And I've got to follow the design. So these twos, by the way, are the default. It can get kind of confusing if you do not sort of follow along. But notice we need candles, and that's where we find our second problem. And to solve this problem without bees, we're going to need ourselves a butcher knife. And I'm going to be turning off my passive mob farm for a bit. And yeah, you get what I'm going to do. And now with some of this mystery tallow, I can go ahead and craft up some candles. And these candles will work in place. You can use vanilla ones, or you can use these, which are the ones specifically from Occultism. And then the last thing we need is the sacrificial bowl in the middle. Well, aside from the sacrificial bowls that we need on the outside as well, that it doesn't actually show you inside of this layout, because you can lay them out pretty much anywhere within this area. I typically like to place them where it seems like it would fit the best, in between all of these chalk glyphs. Now, all we have to do is basically make the book that it wants us to make, which is the foliate for this particular ritual, combine it all together with our dye, and we should be ready to go. So this is just a foliate book right here. And then we can bind that with the Dictionary of Spirits, and that gets us a bound version. So we're binding the spirit to the book. And then all we have to do is add the corresponding recipes, which in this case, if we search crusher, we will see that the basic crusher needed is this one right here. And here's all the required items that need to go inside the sacrificial bowls. And so last but not least, we just need to right click on here. Now, occultism is a pretty slow process. And so that is where something like the time in the bottle, which I just crafted, comes into play. Now, Netherite was what was needed for this. And while this whole operation is working, I want to show you what I actually set up for that. Now, not to be wasteful, I decided to go ahead and take ancient debris and turn it into dirty Netherite scrap within a crusher. That then gets tripled. So we end up making 3 of these dirty for 1, and then the enrichment chamber just turns it directly to Netherite scrap, essentially turning 1 stack of the ancient debris into 3 stacks of the Netherite scrap. That's a pretty good gain. Now I think we're back just in time, but notice how long this is taking. That's where that time in the bottle is really going to come into play. And here we go. This guy is different looking, you may have seen, and that's because there has been an entire restructure of how these entities look. And I love the way this guy looks. I've not really seen this guy. He's so cute. But all we have to do with this little fella is we shift right click his inventory, and we just need to get him crushing. Now, another thing you can also do is just drop the items, I believe, on him, and it will also pick up the items and it will start crushing. And it will also drop the items into the world. So it's something we need to kind of keep an eye on. But the real thing that he needs to crush is this instone that you see right here. And that's going to be required to move us along into our next ritual. So after gathering up the instone and also gathering up some crushed gold, which technically this guy would do, but we have access to others, and also crushed obsidian, which we can get through mechanism, we are ready to go and are ready to start summoning the thing that drops that smithing template that I so want. And the only things that was locking us into doing that was this right here. So we're going to need 2 impure chalks, and we're going to need to make ourselves a gold chalk, and we're also going to need to make ourselves a purple chalk. And this is the one that required that instone. So now that we have both of those, making some of the other rituals is going to be very simple. And since I'm not going to be using this guy, I do want to save him for later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply use a mob yoinker on him, and I'm going to pick him up. And poor little guy, he's just going to be trapped in here like a genie. Or should I say, a djinn. Now in the quest book, it tells us this is the particular ritual that we are going to need. Abra's commanding conjure sacrifice. And it says pigs summoned possessed hoglins. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to do something that I absolutely hate doing in games. And that is killing pigs. Now in this top list here in the book, this takes us through the different sort of rituals that we see. And notice this ritual looks very similar to our first ritual. And this ritual also looks very similar to this first ritual. And that's because they are essentially the same thing. When these are overlaid, like if I break this, you will see that the white chalk that we just placed down is actually in the same position that it was before. And so we can just leave the regular white chalk and continue to expand upon this. Now these corners over here require spirit attuned crystals, and the way that we get those is by sacrificing some diamonds. And we are going to need quite a few of them in order to do this. So now that we have the spirit attuned gems, we can combine them together to make spirit attuned crystals. And these are all going to go here on the side. And as soon as I have this done, this should be almost complete. We just got to place our sacrificial bowl. Now, just when I thought this particular ritual was what I needed, it's actually not. So if we go underneath the possession right here, the possession rituals, and we look at the possessed Hoglin, we can click on this to know the exact one we need. And this requires a couple of skulls. Not exactly what I have, and is a little bit of a different ritual in this case. So we'll notice there's a little bit more that needs to be added back here in order for this to work, including skeleton skulls. And if you don't have a mob farm, this is definitely one reason to have one with a beheading upgrade. But I believe I bought these from a wandering villager or wandering trader. Good thing I did, because I definitely need them. And now with that, this is now complete. So now we have the appropriate ritual to be able to summon this bad boy in. And just with that, I think it's now time to at least try. So we just need an Ifrit for this. And I think I was getting, we need a pig to be nearby. And it says started summoning. And I think it's going to go all the way through this. Now, I don't know if we have to sacrifice a pig in order for this to work. But if it does need a pig, it is going to set here in idle. But notice, by the way, this is taking a long time. I think that's because we might actually have to sacrifice this guy initially. I'm sorry. And now it has turned purple. So the sacrifice has been done. And now this will start to summon. I've got to keep a close eye on this though, because this mob can change form. This is another mob, keep in mind. And we're doing this in the overworld. And so this will actually turn from a Hoglin to a Zoglin if I am not careful. And that's why I want to try and mob swab this thing as quick as possible. That is, if I can actually mob swab it. See, if we can mob swab it, then we don't have to perform this ritual again. We should be able to make a spawn egg for this thing. And that would be fantastic. So let me see. We have a little bit of time in our bottle. Let's go ahead and use that on here. That speeds up the ritual if you use it on this middle block. And there it goes. So we have captured. Can I mob swab? There we go. I did. And notice I also was able to pick up this Hoglin. Now, the mob swab, I still don't 100% know if this is going to fully give us the egg, but we can always try. And the way that we do this is we make ourselves some GM chicken feed, where it's just essence, seed, and your mob swab. And if we use this on a chicken, it should produce an occultism possessed Hoglin spawn egg. So now after sneaking in my mob farm to grab a chicken, I now should have a chicken that I can place in the world and... oh, get an egg from. Yes. Okay, so now we have a possessed Hoglin spawn egg, but how do we use that? Well, this is where we're going to go back into the Nether, and I think this is going to be perfect. So this I'm going to keep. This is a regular blaze spawner, but there should be another blaze spawner lurking around here somewhere. Typically, there are more than one. Aha, and here's the other one. So what I'm thinking is I can just exchange this with the Hoglin, the possessed Hoglin. And so this should now hopefully spawn possessed Hoglins? Or at least so you would think it would. And these guys are going to get incredibly annoying, aren't they? And there they are. So yes, this is a possessed Hoglin. And so I can just continue to take these guys out. And look, they drop netherite scrap. And so the goal is to hopefully get enough of these, because it's not a guarantee, by the way, to get this smithing template. 100% not a guarantee. You could get absolutely nothing from killing these. So doing the summoning method would take you forever. So definitely recommend, if you can do this method, to do it instead. And there we go. On the second one, we now have ourselves a smithing template. And this could be used to automate smithing templates and also work on netherite scrap. And I almost wonder, the drigme farming this thing would probably be quite insane. And now with the possessed Hoglin out of the way, and now we have ourselves a smithing template, we can now use the standard recipe, which I'm just going to ignore this one for right now, because this does seem like It is a recipe added from something else, and even according to the Discord, this was not an intended thing to be in here. So I'm going to go ahead and just loop a few times. And so now we have more than one, using the standard vanilla recipe. And this unlocks a world of potential. Not only do we actually get access to the Netherite meshes, which are pretty nice and a nice upgrade, we also get access to a ton of other useful things. For example, we have the smithing template. We also gain access to being able to upgrade Netherite upgrades from functional storage, which are huge to be able to have those. And speaking of functional storage, yes, we will be diving into that definitely. Now, we've been messing around with occultism during this episode, and things do kind of get lonely from time to time, and I think there is a way to satisfy that loneliness here with occultism. Now, there is one way that we can cure loneliness, and that's with love. Now, hear me out. We can actually summon in a wife or a husband demon from occultism, and it can do chores for you, such as cook and make potions last longer. But aesthetically, it is something kind of interesting, and we already have this ritual area set up, so I mean, might as well use it. And just when you thought things were getting a little bit weird, well, we actually need to sacrifice a chicken in order to summon this, which seems pretty interesting. But that is exactly what we need for both, whether we're making the husband or we're making the wife variant, because there are technically two in this, which I find kind of hilarious. So let's go ahead and speed this up. It's going to consume all of the parts, and this is going to summon a demonic wife. Oh my god, and it hovers. That is hilarious. And it's blushing. Oh my god. I can't believe this is actually a thing. But yeah, this is here to cure your loneliness. Now, something to note, if you don't have a mob yoinker, you can craft up one of these soul gems, and this will allow you to capture creatures as well. It feels really weird calling this a creature when it's supposed to be your demonic wife, but we can yoink it. And we can place it over here, and I do want to see one of its effects that it supposedly can do. It can take like raw food, and we're supposed to be able to give it, and it immediately cooks it. Insta cooks. Oh, that is so cool. And it says it uses its magic abilities to do this. Now, another thing that it says it can do is it can extend your potion durations. So this has a duration of 3 minutes of mana regeneration. And if I right click on here, we get this potion generation effect for 15 minutes. That, I would say, is a significant increase in time. So not only is this a lovely companion to have around your base, well, it also has some nice uses, honestly. I'm not falling in love, you are, okay? Let's get that clear. Now, something else to note, she is a familiar, so she will follow you around, much like a dog would. That was a really weird comparison, but yeah, she will. It will. I really don't know what you are. Adorable. That's what I'm going to call it. Now, as far as the male counterpart, or the husband counterpart, I guess you could say, this one looks like this. So he is apparently much smaller, which I find that to be absolutely hilarious. And it has to be, that had to be a design that was done intentionally. But this little guy, yeah, he's got wings and I'm assuming floats around. And the only difference in the recipe is you just use a emerald instead of a diamond. Now, of course, you can make these guys sit by just right-clicking on them. And so, yeah, there we go. It's even cuter when it's sitting, though. I can't do this. Now, there are a bunch of other familiars and they all give you different effects. For example, the bat gives you night vision. There's a beholder with the lasers and all kinds of craziness. I really, though, I just have no idea what I would want. This one repairs equipment while mining and then upgrades other familiars. Like this one seems like an interesting one to have as well. Now there is something else that I would kind of like to play with. And this is of course outside the realm of useful in my opinion, but it is kind of cool looking. And that is going to be the chimera. So I can go ahead and summon this. Now this requires a 9th pedestal and I can go ahead and get a sheep in here. And you do have to sacrifice a sheep in order for this to work. And I will accelerate this ritual. But this should summon in a new one. This one is going to be very similar to this little fella. But this is something that we should be able to ride. Now, yes, it has a goat sticking off the side. And you can technically separate the goat from the chimera. There's a snake on the back. It's like a mixture of all kinds of different animals. Very interesting. But what we're supposed to be able to do is feed it meat, and it will grow and continue to grow as we feed it meat until it is of rideable level. And there we go. So I now can ride this thing around the base. It's just cool. I mean, that's pretty darn cool. And this is what it looks like when it is fully grown. Oh, that is so sick looking with the cobra in the back and everything. And to make this guy sit down, you just shift right click and there we go. Now we have another awesome mob that is just chilling out at our base. Definitely helping with that loneliness feeling. And you know what? Why just have one familiar when we could technically have two? There's another familiar. And this one just lays down on the ground. Oh, that is hilarious. Is this writable as well? No, you just right click it and it just plays dead. That's adorable. Also kind of creepy because as much as I enjoy looking at goats, I don't like peering into their eyes. That's the scary part. Now, I think later on down the road, we're definitely going to have some more experiences with occultism, as we're going to probably end up getting into a way to generate resources within this mod, as there's a couple of things that I think we can only get through this particular method. But for now, this has been a fun introduction to, well, the occultism mod, and also granted us a smithing template, which is a very, very nice thing for us to have now, allowing us to proceed into making some insanely powerful upgrades. And so if you enjoy videos just like these, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give this video a huge thumbs up if you did enjoy and you found something new and interesting. And with that, it is now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that amazing things is going to go out to EP11, I think, or it's EPTA5. Thank you so much, by the way, for your amazing support by choosing to support me over on the Discord and by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting in honestly one of the best ways possible. I thank you all so very much. I will see you, of course, in the next episode. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye!